We have here the bearer of the European Council for Merit, Anna Zelenska, who really helps us a lot. Thanks to President Zelensky, we have lost the direct 500 million on gas transit, because gas is not being used at all, and as far as oil is concerned, he made a purely ideological decision, because he thinks that this is a way to condemn Slovakia and Hungary for the sovereign views we have, not only when it comes to the war in Ukraine, but also when it comes to other world issues. I simply ask the leaders of the countries of the European Union, ladies and gentlemen in the European Union, what is more important to you, the war in Ukraine, or the interests of Ukraine as a non-member state of the European Union, or are the interests of the EU member states more important to you? We don't want anything. We just want to take back the oil, for which the refinery is ready to pay a lot. The oil for which we have a claim on the basis of contracts. The oil that, if it came through this oil pipeline, would completely change the map of the crisis in Europe. Because if today we had stable supplies of oil through the pipeline, which is stopped by Zelensky, and this pipeline is clearly undamaged, we have satellite images. We are not standing here today, and we are not solving the problem of whether the gasoline, the oil, will even be in some way. The Slovak public must know that the Ukrainian President Zelensky intentionally damages the Slovak Republic. And I'll say it again. The Slovak Republic must know that the Ukrainian President Zelensky intentionally damages the Slovak Republic because we don't have the same opinion on the war as he wants. But only a madman can turn off the society. Sorry, I'm using this phrase. Today, we are all finding out in Europe what an extraordinarily important contribution of oil to this region is. And I welcome all the voices that are calling for a healthy mind. Let's go to vote. Let's finally end this unhappy war, and let's go back to standard economic and mutually beneficial relations. I would like to ask the opposition to monitor the statements we make after the government's vote, because otherwise they spread nonsense, and they provide the public with information that is absolutely not based on the truth. It is simply not possible to accept that opposition representatives go to the media and say that we have the most expensive fuel in the world. And the reality is completely different. And I want to thank those journalists who, despite the fact that they don't love us, already warned the opposition against this nonsense they spread. Our words are being fulfilled that Iran is not Venezuela, and there are all the predictions that this conflict will continue for a long time. Therefore, the situation on international markets will worsen if it comes to oil supplies. We were informed today by representatives of the refinery Slovnaft that about 20% of oil is missing on the international market. This is such a huge volume that it automatically creates crisis states. We were also informed that there are cases when a company orders a tanker and then finds out that someone is overpaying the tanker. These are countries such as Japan, China, or South Korea, so there are many factors that complicate life. And I greet Mr. Zelensky again that not only did he give us the oil tanker on which we have an order because we have contracts, and above all, the European Union allows them to draw this tanker by 2027. What is the government's plan and what do we want to achieve? Our plan is for Slovakia to compare itself with the V4 countries and Austria. Because I don't suppose that if there was cheaper petrol in Germany, someone from Slovakia would go to tank petrol in Germany. But the border areas are interesting in that you can visit a neighboring country, and you can refuel there if there are more favorable conditions there. So we want to be at a level that is comparable, and if it comes to Austria, we want to be cheaper. And we are there. If it comes to the current state of oil, ladies and gentlemen, we are the cheapest in the V4 countries, and we are as cheap as Poland and as cheap as Austria. Today, representatives of Slovnaft pointed out to us the situation that arose in some northern areas of Slovakia, where, due to the fact that oil in Slovakia is much cheaper than in Poland, there was a huge purchase. Not only in the tank, but they had various transport vehicles, and it happened that some petrol pumps literally dried up. They were a huge effort to buy their own oil. Therefore, I would like to point out that we have decided that we accept the proposal given by representatives of Slovnaft that they will probably regulate it themselves. For example, that you can only refuel at the gas station and you cannot refuel any transport vehicles. That is a matter for the seller. We cannot interfere with that. But what we can do, and now we are analyzing it, is to accept the government order and say that Slovaks will buy the oil cheaper than foreigners. If a foreigner comes, he will have to buy the oil for a price that may be completely different in his country. We can do it. The relevant legal regulations allow us to do so. Now, the legislature is analyzing the situation in the fastest time. If someone comes from a neighboring country and wants to refuel the oil, he will probably pay a higher price than Slovak drivers. Or we will have a minimal program that there will be a limit that he can buy, and he can fill up the tank and cannot buy anything more.